Alright, so welcome to my SummerSlam 2022 review. The show ended I'd say about half an hour to an hour ago. I was watching the Amanda Nunes fight, so I couldn't get the review done. But now that that fight's over with, she did regain her title. We're going to talk about SummerSlam 2022, which was, to me, the best WWE pay-per-view we've gotten so far. I would put this show, and when I say so far, I mean in 2022. I would put this show right up there with WrestleMania Night 1. And I'm going to tell you why. So, I'll tell you this. There was absolutely no hype going into this show a couple weeks ago. There was nothing. Nobody I knew was talking about it. Even the wrestling fans that I knew just were not into the show, didn't know what matches they were going to do, didn't care. There was just no buzz. But because of all the Vince McMahon commentary, because of the fact that, and all that, the scandal going around, and the fact that now we have Stephanie and Triple H back in the fold, and Triple H has been named head of creative, that has changed everything, because now people, wrestling fans, especially hardcore ones, the ones that know what's going on, they are now all of a sudden wondering, okay, what's going to happen with the product? What's Triple H going to do? Are we going to get like an NXT black and gold thing? Or we're going to get like a hybrid? Is it going to be more like Vince used to do? Like, now that Triple H is truly in charge, what are we going to get? Think about how historic this is. Whether or not SummerSlam was a good or a bad show, right? It was a historic show before it even started. This being the first pay-per-view in the history of the company, the first pay-per-view. Remember, Vince McMahon bought the company from his father before pay-per-view existed. This was the first pay-per-view without Vince McMahon being the controlling creative head. That's a big deal, folks. We're talking about decades now. Decades, going back to the 80s of this man being in control. And that made this show historic no matter what. So the eyeballs were on this show. Were they going to deliver a good show? And the answer is yes. They gave us a very wrestling-heavy show with a little bit of gaga and some really interesting surprises. So I'm going to go through some of these matches and give you my thoughts on them. And they also, not only did they do a lot of good wrestling, they also had numerous returns on this show, building up new angles for the television, and they had 2 turns. There was a double turn on this show. And to me, that definitely means that they're progressing the stories forward. I don't think tomorrow night on Raw, Monday night, because it's Saturday. Monday night on Raw, I don't expect it to be a totally different show. I don't think it's going to be a complete 180. But I think that we're going to start to see more of Triple H's influence. Maybe his people getting pushes. Maybe the women that he cultivated in NXT with Bayley and them, them getting pushes, that to me is, we'll find out. So the opening matchup was Bianca Bel-Air versus Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's title, a rematch from last year's SummerSlam when Becky returned, as well as a rematch from WrestleMania. Now, the story of this match, it was a very hard-hitting and brutal match, but it was a solid, good wrestling match. I really enjoyed this match. I still like the WrestleMania match a little bit more, but the match did a great job of showing the athleticism Bianca Belair can perform with, and it showed a bona fide mean streak in Becky Lynch. So, but the story of the match may have been, in a way, usurped or overshadowed by the story of the post-match. So, Bianca Belair wins the match. And then what happens is Lynch offers a handshake, which is exactly what happened a year ago when Bianca was suckered into getting caught and dropped the title. So would Becky once again attack her? And she didn't. She shook her hand. And that, to me, is Becky Lynch's babyface turn. We've been talking about how the characters have been very miscast. Ronda Rousey is not a good babyface by any means. And Becky Lynch, I think, is a better babyface. I think Becky Lynch is an effective heel or face, but she really got popular when she was a face. So we got to make things right, and this show did that for both these women. So Becky shakes Bianca's hand, and the feud is over. But then, after the match, huge pop. We got a bunch of returns of people, especially one who's been out for over a year, back to the WWE. Bayley made her return. We've been wondering when the hell she was coming back. she came back on SummerSlam to confront Becky. And, no, to confront Bianca. Then Dakota Kai made her return, who I think was released before. I think she was released, and I guess Triple H brought her back because he's in control now. And then that was followed by Io Shirai, who we also haven't seen for quite some time. So they all go in there, and I guess that Bayley, Dakota, and Io Shirai are a new faction, probably going to Raw. And Bayley even said, I'm not going to show up here alone. And they confronted Bianca. And then what happened was Becky Lynch stood beside Bianca. So she's definitely a babyface. Then the trio kind of backed off. So they did a great job. And by the way, they call her Io Sky for some reason, but it's Io Shirai. But did a pretty good job of bringing back Bayley, Dakota, and Io. And then it's kind of not only that, but turning Becky. So we have kind of we have several new feuds that are going to be going on in the next few weeks on Raw with all these women. So that's good. It's good to set up some stuff for television. So we then have Logan Paul and The Miz. So Logan Paul, dude, we have a guy here who's wealthy, who's famous, and yet he still loves wrestling so much that he's going to go and put his body on the line to wrestle. I got to tell you, of all the celebrities that have come around, I don't know if any of them have been able to pick up wrestling as fast or as effective as Logan Paul. I cannot believe how good of a match this was. I cannot believe how well worked this match is. I don't know who to credit for this, whether it be Miz, whether it be Logan Paul, or the trainers. I would say it's everyone because they put together an amazing match. Logan Paul was doing springboard moonsaults. He was doing springboard phenomenal forearms. He did a splash from the top rope through the table on the outside. This was absolutely absurd. Just absolutely over the top. And I should mention, speaking of AJ Styles, he did interfere in the match and attack Tommaso Ciampa, or Ciampa. I keep saying Ciampa, but it's Ciampa. So that's going to be a TV feud probably, or maybe a match at Clash of the Castle, because I would love to see a singles match with AJ and Tommaso Ciampa. That'd be amazing, on a pay-per-view. So this, another good match, and Logan Paul has really, like him or not, he's a controversial figure here on YouTube. He has really, really, really shown that he has an aptitude for the business. He really has an aptitude for the business. Then we had a bunch of ads that took forever that I was just not in the mood for. They had the Maximum Male Models ad. I mean, it's an obnoxious gimmick. I'm not really into it, even though I do like Max Dupree himself. And then the next match was Bobby Lashley and Theory. Now, this is probably the weakest match of the show, but not necessarily in a bad way. It was either this or the Ronda match we're going to talk about here in a minute. So, they had a pretty cool little match here. It was only about 4 or 5 minutes. Lashley wins with a hurt lock, and Theory tapped out. So, Lashley retained the U.S. title. He is still pretty over, and I'm hoping they eventually build to a Roman Lashley match at some point, maybe at the Royal Rumble or something like that. Then we had a no disqualification tag team match, Rey Mysterio and Dominic against Finn Balor and Damien Priest from Judgment Day. So this was really, really stupid, and I'm going to tell you why. This is a no disqualification match, which means you don't have to worry about getting DQ'd, and yet they're sitting there wrestling by tag rules. I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't get this. Why would you follow the rules of a tag match? If it's no DQ, that means tornado tag rules. That means you brawl all over the building. They followed tag team wrestling rules and did barely anything that was no DQ-ish. Terrible. Whoever put this match together, whatever agent put it together, you've got some great workers in this match, yo. Great workers. You got Punishment Martinez, you got Finn Balor, you got Rey Mysterio. Great workers. And this is what they put together. It could have been so much better if they were able to get more creative. But the story of the match wasn't even that. It was the fact that Edge came back as a babyface again, came up the stairs with a new entrance, sort of like a hyped up entrance like the Brood used to do, came in the ring and speared both members of Judgment Day, and Mysterio's did a double 619 and a springboard splash for the win. So that feud is over. The Mysterios win, and now we can segue into the Edge feud with Judgment Day. So again, they kept storylines going. I should mention there was a line in this match, where Corey Graves told Michael Cole, "I liked you better when you weren't allowed to have an opinion." And Cole said, that's changed. A lot has changed. So he's basically saying that everything that he said was fed through by Vince, which is true. Everything that Michael Cole said on SmackDown, like most of the important announcements and the way things were said, were fed to him by Vince. It's been this way for years, y'all, years. And now that Vince is gone, Michael Cole has a much better grasp on how to do, he doesn't have as much constrictions. So that's why he referred to the fans as fans. They didn't even say WWE Universe, they said fans, folks. So there is a change. If they start calling championships belts, I'm going to be real happy. Pat McAfee and Happy Corbin. So I really liked McAfee's entrance here with the male choir chanting bum-ass Corbin. And then McAfee comes out, right? And literally, did a leaping, he did a bunch of shit in this match. A superplex. He did a swanton. Pat McAfee, just like Logan Paul, and he's been doing it longer, has really acclimated himself to the business. He really has the athleticism to put on good matches, and this was a lot of fun. This was a very, very fun match. McAfee kicked Corbin in the nuts and hit the code red, but it was a little bit sloppy the way he did it. These guys are pretty big dudes, so they have to be extra careful when they do moves like that. Extra careful. And he won. And it was a thing where I was happy to see him win. I love Pat McAfee, but this feud needs to end. And these guys had to go their separate ways, and I think they did here. So they brought out Drew McIntyre, who cut a promo about his world title shot at Clash in the Castle, and he said he was going to win the title for the fans, and whoever wins, whether it be Brock or Roman Reigns. So it was the promo. Then we had a really, really awesome match. We had the Usos against the Street Profits with Jeff Jarrett as the referee for the tag team titles, the unified tag team titles. You can't go wrong with these two teams, bro. You can't. Montez Ford does things in that ring, the way he gets the leaping elevation, how tall he is, he's a very, very unique athlete, and WWE is very lucky to have him, and I mean that sincerely. They came out with the Tennessee Titans cheerleaders. That was cool. And I can't really go through a play-by-play here. Jeff Jarrett didn't really do much. He got involved a little bit, but didn't really do much to sort of be a part of the finish. It didn't really matter. You know what I mean? The Usos basically hit the 1D and some super kicks to win the match. I think the feud's over now again. Like I mentioned, this show was the beginning of new feuds and the end of other ones. And I think that this feud is over. But again, you can't go wrong with this team. This is not the best match they've ever had. I thought the one last month was better, but it was still very good. Kid Rock showed up. That was unexpected. And then Riddle all of a sudden jumps in the ring. And he says that he is not cleared to wrestle, but he calls out Seth Rollins for a fight. So Seth runs in, they brawl, they get carried away. So Rollins gives Riddle the curb stomp, and they were saying that, Riddle was hurt, but this is obviously a big angle, and Rollins left, and Riddle looked like he was about to get carried to the back. So this match, from what I understand, this match has been postponed for Clash at the Castle, so it'll happen there on that show. It was supposed to happen here, but when Triple H and Stephanie took over, they made some changes, and I guess they're going to postpone this match. Probably due to timing reasons, because at this point, the show was getting kind of long. You know what I mean? And they still had a couple of big matches left. So Liv Morgan and Ronda Rousey, again, short match. This was probably the worst match on the show alongside the Bobby Lashley match. Not really anything special that happened except for the post-match. Liv Morgan won. But what happened was Liv Morgan tapped out. It was kind of convoluted. Liv Morgan tapped out with an arm bar, but Ronda's shoulders were down. But the ref didn't see her tap out. So, in a way, Ronda got screwed. Then she got pissed off and attacked Liv Morgan, put her in the armbar, and the crowd booed. And then, when Rousey put the ref in an armbar, they cheered. So that was awesome. They broke it all up. So I guess this is the heel turn for Ronda, which really should have happened a while ago. She's been miscast. She's not a good babyface. She still hates the fans. She still has real issues. Like, you can tell this woman needs a therapist. I hate to say that. I don't know her personally, but she's either a very, very good performer, a very good actress, or she really needs therapists, Really needs it. Or again, maybe she's a great worker, but the way she's been behaving and the stories I've heard about her, like, she's kind of been, she shouldn't be a babyface, okay? It's very inauthentic. She needs to be a heel. That's what I'm saying. She's better cast as a heel and Becky as a face, like it was a few years ago. So they brought out Kane, Glenn Jacobs, who's been getting a lot of heat lately for his political views, and he basically said the attendance was 48,449, which is a complete made-up number. That is not the real number. We know for a fact that this show was configured for 39,000, so they didn't get over 40K on this show. They just didn't. They're going to lie and say they got over 50K or close to 50K, but they didn't. Like, close to 50K, but they didn't get that. They got 37 to 39,000 people, no more. So they always do this. They always add an extra 10,000 or more. They do it at WrestleMania all the time. They do it at SummerSlam whenever they have a stadium show. But I will say this. The crowd looked great. The production on this show was great. It really reminded me of like WrestleMania 31 mixed with SummerSlam 92. You had a lot of natural sunlight, and it was just, the show felt really nice. Now, then we have the main event. What can I say about this? Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, once again, last man standing for the Unified Universal Championship. This was the best Lesnar-Roman match I've ever seen. The best one. This is what WrestleMania should have been. This is what WrestleMania should have been. They got plenty of time, told a great story, and they told the story that needed to be told. And they also had things happen in this match that I've never seen before. You had your usual near falls where you had big moves and then you'd wait for the guy to get up. Roman would do the Superman punches and the spears and even maybe the front choke. Then Brock did his own, plus F5s and also weapons, of course. They were brutalizing each other with weapons. It was a brutal match. So what happened was they have this match, but before the match starts, it's Lesnar's first last man standing. And so Lesnar takes a tractor and drives it to the ring, like a big tractor, and literally gets on top of it. And the match starts with him jumping off the tractor. And he does like a Luthez press. That was freaking awesome. Like, whoever came up with that. The agenting in the previous match, right? In the match I talked about, the tag match where it was no DQ, but they were on the tag ropes and they were on the apron. That was horrible. Bad. But the agenting for this match was the opposite. The show had very inconsistent storytelling. This had some brutal suplexes, which we're used to seeing, and like I said, weapons. And so we saw tables, a couple of table spots. We saw chairs. We saw steps. Things got really wild in the last third of the match. Like, the match sort of had three parts to it. At first they're kind of doing basic moves. Then they go to the finishers and weapons, and they go to the big finishing sequence. So what happens is Lesnar hits an F5, and Reigns gets up. Reigns reverses the F5 into a guillotine. Lesnar reverses it to his guillotine. Looks real tight on him too. Reigns looked like he was out, but he got up before the 10 count. He got up at 9. Then Brock grabs the tractor and drives it to the ring, and literally uses the tractor to push the ring and lift the ring. I've never seen this. This has never been done before in wrestling. This is new. This is innovative, and this is memorable. This has never been done before in the history of our sport. He literally used a tractor to lift the ring on one corner, and Roman Reigns rolled out the other side. It looked so ridiculous and so over the top, but so awesome. It's something Brock would do. It was sort of a Steve Austin kind of thing, how he would always drive vehicles into the buildings. It was like that. So Lesnar gets on there, and then he's about to attack Roman. Then the Usos show up to save him, so they attack him. Whatever. Lesnar grabs Paul Heyman. He fights them off, and he gives him an F5 through the announce table. Now, this is exactly what should have happened at Mania, because the story here from the beginning has been Paul Heyman manipulating both these guys from all the way back in the first part of their feud in 2015. And the fact that Lesnar, Heyman chose to be with Reigns, and Lesnar finally got his revenge on Heyman. That's exactly what needed to happen, y'all. That's the story they had to close out. So Lesnar F5ing Heyman and knocking him out through the announce table was his revenge. Let's not forget that The Rock bottom Paul Heyman through a table at SummerSlam of 2002 during his match with Lesnar. So Theory's music hits and he runs down with the briefcase right when he's about to cash in. Like he nails Roman, he's about to cash in, just like what Seth did at WrestleMania 31. Brock gets him an F5, so he's out. He did not get to cash in. So Usos come in. They nail Lesnar. Lesnar gets up. Roman Reigns spears Lesnar a couple times. Then takes the briefcase and starts pummeling Lesnar. Lesnar still gets up. Another hits him with the title belt. He still gets up, so hits him with the belt again. And then they bury him under pieces of table and the announce table, steel steps, and so Reigns covered him in all these contraptions, all this wood and metal and plastic. And Lesnar didn't get up, and the referee counted to 10, and Roman Reigns retained the title, and he hugs the bloodline, and that's how we go off the air with Reigns retaining over Lesnar. That feud needs to be over now. It's done, if you ask me. No more matches between these two guys for many years, if ever. This was their best match. They made up for WrestleMania. This is what WrestleMania should have been. Point blank, SummerSlam 2022 was a damn good show. 2 weak matches and a show filled with great matches. Great surprise returns. Turns. You had a lot of different things going on. You had angles that were ending and angles that were progressing. It is a very important show to watch, and the first show without Vince McMahon. And so far, it looks like the company's going to be all right. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of rumors about a sale being finalized soon. But when it comes to this night, they had a great show. Go watch it if you haven't. Have a great day. Take care and subscribe if you are new.